Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video, and this is another video reaction on earthquakes in the US. It's not earthquakes that have happened, but it's sort of like a video of how bad they could get in the US, or sorry, in specifically California, or like states along the San Andreas Fault. And the video is what if a mega earthquake hit California, and I don't know the in-depth details because I learned about this a long time ago, but I remember in school learning about the, again, San Andreas Fault and about how devastating it can truly be. Like, some of the, and I think it happens every so and so, I don't know how many years it happens, but I think it's like every, maybe like 500 years. I don't actually remember, maybe longer than that. But like, it will be like a sort of an earthquake that you can't describe. I don't know what magnitude. It will be probably off the Richter scale, to be honest. But I don't know 100% about it, but I am here like learning about these kinds of things at the moment through the video that I'm reacting to, and people are helping me learn and teach me as well. And yeah, people are really enjoying these reactions, and I'm here to learn more. And yeah, without rambling too much, I just want to get into this to see what this video has to sort of help me learn about, I guess you could say, and to sort of explain what could really happen. So let's get into this. It's a bit of a short one, but let's get into this and see what this is about. And yeah, hope you guys are going to enjoy. Suggest some more videos like this on the same kind of sort of topic, and I'll be sure to do so in future. But let's get into this one and see what this one's about.
Catastrophic earthquake scenarios have played out on the silver screen for decades, terrifying viewers with quakes that can collapse skyscrapers or topple entire cities. Here's what will happen if the big one hits the West Coast. On July 4th, 2019, Ridgecrest, California was hit with a 6.4 magnitude earthquake and then a 7.1 just one day later. But neither of these compare to the...
So I had two like huge earthquakes back-to-back days. How is that even possible? See, I knew there's aftershocks, but I thought the aftershocks happened like minutes and hours later, not days later. That's kind of crazy.
The long-awaited big one, which scientists predict will eventually rattle the Golden Coast. But when it hits, what will that actually look like? Here's what experts say could happen in the seconds, hours, and days after the big one. While experts can't know exactly when a quake will occur, they have a pretty good idea of where. California is located in a hot zone of fault lines, the most notorious of them, the San Andreas Fault.
You know, here in California, you have dangers from a number of different kinds of earthquakes. You know, the major danger is from the earthquakes on the San Andreas Fault system.
On average, the San Andreas Fault ruptures every 150 years.
150?
The southern parts of the fault have remained inactive for over 200 years.
We haven't had a big earthquake in Southern California really since 1857.
In other words, we're overdue for a major shake. According to a 2008 federal report, the most likely scenario is a 7.8 magnitude quake that would rupture a 200-mile stretch along the southernmost part of the fault.
It's basically moving the ground several yards over an area of 50 square miles. So, you know, the power of magnitude 7.8 earthquake is probably close to the power used in the whole state for a year. Basically something that we as a civilization have trouble creating with short of like a nuclear explosion.
If you're near the epicenter of the earthquake, it will be nearly impossible to stand.
People have this idea of running out of bed, out of their buildings, and that's a terrible idea because a lot of what we see in earthquakes is people with broken legs and people who run through glass. And the best thing to do, like we always say, is duck, cover, and hold. Get under some piece of furniture, and you know the main point is to protect your head and chest.
During and immediately following the shaking, buildings could collapse.
The number of buildings that were constructed before about 1980 is really significant, and most of these buildings are very vulnerable to damage and collapse.
In this time-lapse video, you can see how building components would hold up in a high-magnitude earthquake.
Because the San Andreas will produce the kind of long period shaking which would be very damaging to very...
Are buildings in Los Angeles built to sort of withstand earthquakes? If they're not, then that sort of thought is scary, but I'm guessing they should be because I don't know how long they've known about the San Andreas fault line and sort of like all the what they're called again. The faults? That's not the thing that I'm looking for. What are they called? Tectonic plates, right? Like, surely they knew about these for, I don't know how long they have, but surely they knew about these before they started building these buildings, because if not, my
Tall
God.
buildings, say in downtown LA and Century City and Long Beach and so forth. Older steel buildings, the connections in them have not necessarily been designed to withstand the maximum forces that actually can be generated.
Unreinforced structures are the least stable, but even buildings up to code could crumble.
The building code, with its minimum requirements, does not ensure that the building will be serviceable after an earthquake. It's intended to not kill anybody. There's a sense that if it's modern, code designed, it's earthquake-proof and everything should be great, serviceable after an earthquake. It's intended to not kill anybody.
What?
While
What are they holding it up with? Like steel beams?
Modern, code designed, it's earthquake-proof and everything should be great, but that's not the reality.
5 steel high-rises could collapse completely, while 10 others will be red-tagged or unsafe to enter. And no, the quake would not cause a tsunami, despite what movies would have you believe.
To trigger a tsunami, it takes an earthquake that moves the ocean floor. And most of the San Andreas is on land. So there'd be a little bit of waves generated from San Andreas earthquake, but nothing that'd be dangerous.
The quake could kill about 1,800 people and leave 50,000 or more with injuries. While people could die from falling debris and collapsed structures, the highest death toll would be from fires.
What?
Historically, the biggest hazard from earthquakes has been fire.
Really?
In the 1906 earthquake, there were 3,000 or 4,000 people who were just caught in that wave of fire that swept through the city.
My God.
The aftermath of the big one will wreak havoc on infrastructure and the economy.
Below our streets and our buildings is this really complicated network of infrastructure that could be damaged, and a lot of the things we take for granted every day won't be available anymore, right? Like water, electricity, being able to drive where you need to drive.
Parts of the San Andreas Fault intersect with 39 gas and oil pipelines. This could rupture high-pressure gas lines, releasing gas into the air and igniting potentially deadly explosions.
So if you have natural gas lines that rupture, that's how.
If I was from LA, this would be the type of thing that would be scaring me, but I assume, maybe they're not even trying to be outlandish with this. Maybe what they're saying is genuinely like what is a very high possibility. But my God, this is like worrying me, and I'm not even from LA, man.
You can get fire and explosions.
And after
Or
the
California
fires
even.
burn out, one of the biggest concerns in a major earthquake is access to fresh water. The major aqueduct networks that pump water into Southern California all cross the San Andreas Fault and could be seriously damaged.
Oh, wow.
So we would be without the lifelines that bring in imported water to the region. They cross through tunnels, cross through aqueducts near the surface. All of these would be ruptured, and so we would be losing 60% of our water supply. Many of these distribution lines for water are near sewer lines, which would also be broken. So now you have a situation where contaminants are potentially getting into the water supply.
Experts say you should keep at least a 2-week supply of water in your home. As the ground shakes and sediments shift,
Is that a thing? Is that a thing just in California in general? Like just constantly have 2 weeks supply of water stocked in your home? Then I'm guessing that's what they mean by that, like all times, because again, you don't know what's going to happen.
there will
do
be
you?
landslides throughout Ventura and western Los Angeles County.
There could be thousands of landslides. There have been earthquakes that have produced thousands.
Landslides?
Landslides definitely can cause fatalities, property damage.
Bro, it's non-stop. There's everything.
We have a lot of people who live up in the hills, right? And so
Landslides.
that's the location where you would be likely to see landslides affecting people.
And finally, the big one will severely impact the economy. Major transportation networks like highways and railways could be unusable for weeks and even months.
Some bridges may not be passable after an earthquake. We've had bridges collapse during past earthquakes.
You might start seeing key industries leave, population loss, and this could have, devastating long-term impacts for the region.
The estimated financial cost of the big one is a whopping $200 billion, with $33 billion in building damages and 50 billion in lost economic activity.
2
This all sounds pretty bad, but
billion.
keep in mind that this is based off of a worst-case scenario. The
Okay,
true
yeah.
impact of a major earthquake is based on a range of unknowable factors. Also, smaller earthquakes on faults directly beneath major population centers are a serious concern.
But the worst case earthquakes are hard to predict. You know, that earthquake in Japan in 2011, their cost almost entirely came because their nuclear power plant melted down. It's very hard to predict what's going to fail in a big earthquake.
So, how can Californians prepare for the big one?
Really have a plan in place. You know, where are you going to meet? What are you going to do? Have water ready. I have a 55-gallon drum full of water. There's some chemical additive I put in it so it's potable for 5 years. 55 gallons is the right amount for I have a family of 4. That'll last us for 2 weeks. Canned food, you know, you have to be ready. I would say it's best just to plan to stay sort of where you are. Getting out of LA is bad enough without an earthquake, right? Traffic's already terrible. If roads are closed and people are all trying to leave, it's going to really be bad.
Wow. Why? This could be a few videos I can see. Like, I'm liking what I'm seeing from this channel, to be fair. Never looked at it before. I mean, I hope it doesn't get blocked. I don't know if it will or not. But this was crazy. I mean, again, worst case scenario, I'm guessing that's how this video was made in every sort of area. But landslides, fires, and you've got the actual earthquake itself. You've got buildings falling, like fires. I said fires already. Like gas leaks and all this stuff. It's like, bro, the things that this could lead to. See, obviously, when I initially thought of earthquakes, I used to just think the earthquake itself, like building falling, etc., would be the extent. I didn't even think these other things like would even be happening. But when you think about it, it could be crazy. It could go like the earthquake could be so devastating, man. My God, don't worry, 2020 is saving it for late for us. Oh, there's still like 2 months left in 2020. Oh no. If this happens in 2020, that really tough of the year for the United States. 2020, write that down. Good thing I live in Alabama. Wait, never mind, I just died by a tornado. Why do I find that funny? I love the comments, man, I really do. The earthquake probably stuck in traffic. It's always my fault, San Andreas. That's why we need to start building sky floating. Fuck's sake. But it's also scary the fact that some of the buildings were built not really to withstand these kinds of events. And when you think about the San Andreas fault and about how devastating, because it's gonna happen. Like there's gonna be an earthquake in again, it's overdue already, so it's gonna happen. And like when it does, mate, I'm really like sort of. No, it's making me because obviously California is like a state, and Los Angeles is a city that I really do want to visit sometime. But now sort of I'm thinking like, what if I go there and this happens, even though it is very unlikely? It's just one of those things. So I can't imagine when you live there. But I mean, I guess people are used to earthquakes. I don't know how often just sort of like the average earthquake happens in Cali, but I assume it's maybe like yearly. I assume that's the case, maybe not, but it's going to be like every few years at least. So I guess people are used to them. But just to that kind of level, wow, man. But hey, this might be completely wrong. I mean, you never know. Like, science is... I mean, it's not going to be completely wrong, but it might be, like, a bit wrong, like, with like, bits here and there. And, like, again, how it's predicting the worst-case scenario. Maybe it's just a bit exaggerated, but still, crazy video. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want any more sort of prediction, I guess is a kind of a prediction-type video out there that you want me to get to, suggest in the comments, and I'll be sure to do so, because I do really enjoy learning about these types of things. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this. Something a bit different, but again, suggest more things like this and I'll really appreciate it. But yeah, until next time, subscribe. Peace.